You talked a lot about, the business development side of things, that you have a lot of buy-in from a lot of different types of organizations in your greater area, including both states as well. How did, when it comes to the talent side of your work, how did you get all of these different organizations from all, different walks of life to really buy into the work that you're doing from both kind of the economic and business standpoint to even those high school students that you mentioned? That's a really
Don't
broad range.
we don't have all the data yet, but we are
Sure.
working on it. But we do have the relationships, and the way that we built these relationships have been over the past 3 or 4 years when we have really been out in the community working to develop two regional talent strategies that both of which came out of the economic development interest of the region. And the first one of those focused on information technology talent, and we really needed to learn a lot about IT and where the gaps were in terms of skills and competencies. And so we reached out and engaged hundreds of people, companies, small businesses, IT professionals, people who had lost their jobs, students. We got everybody involved, listening to them about what the needs and the challenges were in information technology. And then in 2010 and 2011, we actually developed a regional talent strategy that focuses on 3 economic sectors. And there again, as we developed this strategy, and it took us more than a year to develop this, we had put a high premium on engagement of different groups and individuals. And it was because of this outreach, listening to people, articulating issues as people understood them, that we really have been able to build these relationships. So one of the questions I know you asked in your what you provided before we started talking was how do we define talent? What is talent in terms of our region? So I would just say that to us, talent was defined in this regional strategy that all of these different groups participated in developing. And so what we're doing now is implementing that definition of talent, and people have already bought into that understanding. So we say that the talent that St. Louis needs going forward in the new economy has 3 attributes. Number 1, people are prepared to work, which means they have a post-secondary credential that's relevant to the place where they're starting their career. Secondly, they're equipped to perform, which means they have those people skills, analytical skills, interpersonal skills. They have a continuing hunger for learning that keeps them going. And third, people are positioned to advance, which means they're on career pathways. So our effort to improve college completion is really focused on that first part of the talent.
You talk about going out in the community and really developing the relationships, aside from, those one-on-one meetings I'm sure you had with all kinds of people throughout the community. How did you talk to all these different subsets of people?
We did a whole series of what we called forums, and really they were discussion groups where we would put a big topic out there and invite everybody who has an interest in that topic to come and talk about it. And we did, I would estimate that over the course of 2 years, we might have done 30 or 40 of these kinds of forums. And so attendance would range from 25 people to 125 people, depending on the topic. So, for example, a topic might be skills needed to compete in a global economy, or what are the most important skills now for information technology, or what are the opportunities in homeland security occupations. So a wide range of topics, and we would get the word out through social media and other mechanisms and invite everybody who wanted to come. And then we would really listen to what they had to say, and we would always have a panel of 3 or 4 people who could talk about the topic, but it was very much a process of engagement. And we recorded all of that, and we wrote it down, and we used it as part of our studies. We also did some surveys, and I would say that 3 surveys we did that were really interesting. The first one was a survey of dislocated workers, people who lost their jobs during the recession. And we had about 300 respondents to a survey we did of people who really talked about what their experience with the job market had been. Then we did a survey about a year and a half ago with the local SHRM chapter, and I would recommend to anybody, SHRM is everywhere, the Society for Human Resource Management. They make great partners with community groups, and we surveyed their members about what the competencies were that they were looking for in new hires. And then just this summer in August and early September, we surveyed 4,000 employees of 17 companies that are a part of our effort to find out how they felt about college, whether or not they were taking college courses, how far along they were, what some of their barriers and obstacles were. So we've used surveys and we've used groups and group discussions. We've met with people one-on-one. I've even met with people in dark corners in coffee shops who had things they wanted to say they didn't want to say in public. So these different forms of outreach have been so important.
I suppose, things that you would share with other organizations that are, I wouldn't say further behind, but at a different place in their work that you are. I know you're focused a great deal on economic development, but there's a lot of other institutions across the country that are really trying to gather data, and it's very challenging for them. Do you have any suggestions, not necessarily where to start, but how to call it all together and bring it into an understandable kind of
One thing we learned the hard way, and I'm sure other people are learning this the hard way too, is that there is no single source of data that's ready-made that's going to give you everything you need. So just be prepared that you're going to need to cobble things together as you can, and that really all depends on relationships. I would also say that it's important to be careful that you don't settle for something that's measuring what you don't really mean to measure, so that your efforts, whatever they are, your intervention or your program, is really being measured against the ultimate outcome that you really want to achieve. This regional talent analytics system that we're putting together is taking a lot of work and a lot of pulling of pieces together. But as I've talked to people in the state agencies and others about what we're doing, I've heard over and over again people say, oh, we have all this data. We built these great data systems, but nobody's really been using it. So they're so glad to have a user group with a research question to ask. So a lot of money is private foundation money and federal dollars have gone into building data systems, apparently, in the recent past. And so I would encourage people to believe that there are folks within your state and local agencies who have information they would love to share.
Are there other areas or things you want to brag about or talk about that you're doing that you haven't been able to cover?
Well, I would say, just going back to this last survey that we did, the RCGA is playing really two concurrent roles in terms of college completion. One is to set this big table that I described to you with representatives of all the different groups who are some are focused on current college students, some on dislocated workers, some on veterans, some on immigrants, retaining college-educated immigrants. So setting that big table and having a common set of metrics that we can all use is one of the things we're doing. But a second thing that we're doing, which builds on the survey that I mentioned of 4,000 employees, is to encourage businesses to encourage their employees to finish college. And so we use the results of that survey to help us develop 3 brochures that are now in production, and they should be ready for distribution early in the new year. But the first one is called 10 Things Employers Can Do to Help Their Employees Finish College. And we got these 10 things literally out of this, what we learned from the employees who took this survey. A second brochure is called 10 Things Colleges and Universities Can Do to Help Employers Help Their Employees Finish College. And we pulled this from this list from some of the focus groups that we had done, discussion groups, also our survey, and also we ran it through our Higher Education Council. And then the third brochure is called 10 Things Employees Can Do to Help Their Employers Help Them Finish College. So these will be promotional materials and educational materials that we'll use when we go out to the larger business community to really engage companies to work with their folks. And we're really excited about that.
Well, that's great. I mean, thank you so much for taking so much time to chat with me too. And it sounds like you're just really doing not only important work, but really good, productive work too in the greater St. Louis